I currently I probably play 3 or 4 hours a day.
No.
I always set aside an hour before I go to bed to play. I have a couple of acoustics in my bedroom, and the first thing I do when I walk in the room is I pick up the guitar and I play it.
Envy of None might be a newish group, but the members of the band bring a lot of experience to the table, and I mean a lot. So here's the story as far as I know it. The bassist Andy Curran of the Canadian band Coney Hatch started collaborating with an American vocalist named Maiah Wynne. Andy sends Maiah a song to add her vocals onto it. That song has Alex Lifeson playing guitar on it. Alex hears the track with Maia's vocals. He realizes there's something special here, and the ball starts rolling. One song turned into an album, and then another. Now, Alex Lifeson, of course, is a Canadian icon, spent years touring the world in Rush with his friends Geddy Lee and Neil Peart. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rolling Stone named Alex one of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. He's an officer of the Order of Canada and given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Guitar Museum. And I'm excited to talk to him about this new record, and I'm happy to say he joins me now in the studio. How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be here, Tom.
How did you know Andy?
Well, I know Andy way back from Coney Hatch. We've been friends for a long time, and then he worked at SRO at our management company for 12 years. There's an A&R guy.
Right.
So, we have a relationship that goes back, quite a ways.
And then talk me through this story. He's working on music and talking to you, and then he calls you and says, I found this incredible singer through a talent contest.
So he was working on a few songs, and he asked if I would put some guitars on, just as a reference. And he said, don't spend much time. Don't worry about it. It's just a guide. So in one particular track called Liar, which is on the first album, I played on that. And there was another singer originally, another female singer that sang on it. So Andy was asked to be a judge on a talent contest, and Maiah was one of the contestants. And the advice he gave her was to get out with other musicians and you really hone your skills, learn your trade. And that's, the best route right now. So she said, well, I Googled you and I know your background, so why don't we work together? So he kind of laughed and said, well, all right, I'll send you a song. And he sent this song, Liar. And she sent it back after she'd done her vocals, and he sent it to me, and I immediately wrote back and said, erase everything that I did. I want to redo the guitars properly. This girl's amazing. We should really make a record with her. And then it just went from there. I used her for another project with Marco Miniman from the Aristocrats that we were doing. And it was a long, very progressive kind of project, progressive music project. And she nailed everything on that. So she was quite skilled even from that early stage.
What did you hear in her voice, in her music, in her watt that just got you?
Maybe I was used to hearing a more rock, sort of traditional rock approach, and she was so different, so refreshingly different. There was a fragility in her voice, in her in her presentations. There was a sense of insecurity, like her voice had so much emotion and so much color to it.
Yeah.
And I was
a vulnerability to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, softness.
And that was a reflection of her state at the time.
Yeah.
She had gone through a lot of things, and she was in a family of people, not her family, but in a group of people that were not healthy for her.
Yeah.
And she's managed to break away from that now, which has been great, and it showed during the production of the record, as she was building up her confidence and all of that. So that's what initially attracted me to her voice. And that juxtaposed against the kind of music that we ended up writing, which was, for the first time, was quite dark and cinematic and atmospheric.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a beautiful contrast.
I've read you say, and I wanted to get you to talk about this, that her lyrics resonated with you.
Yeah, she has that really special ability to write lyrics that are relatable. And although they're very introspective for her, and much of it is her own experience, they come across as the kind of lyrics that, you say, yeah, I feel that way.
You did
about
that? You felt that way?
Yeah, well, a lot of her lyrics. Or I understood where it was coming from emotionally from her. My relationship with her is really special. We somehow, I don't know, we sort of fell into it. I was so impressed with her vocals and how the sensibilities in her arrangements and construction of her vocals. Quite often when we were writing in the early stages, I'll do scratch guitars, then it'll go to her, she'll do scratch vocal. It'll come back to me, and then now I start really focusing on what she's done and the harmonic content in her delivery. So I sort of wrap around that. Then I send it back to her, and then she wraps around what I did. So we're constantly dancing in our arrangements. It's really something that she's become quite a muse for me, and so inspirational.
And also, like, musicians are musicians, right, Alex? Like, I think there can be something made of someone who's been around for a while, like a veteran rock and roll, guy, and someone in their 20s making music, that they would come from separate worlds. But I generally find that musicians are musicians. Like, how do you find them?
Yeah, I would say that's true. There's a sense of family amongst musicians.
Yeah.
In general, certainly you get the musicians that are maybe a little more egotistical or narcissistic, and there's plenty of them around. But generally, all musicians feel that they're in a family. It's not a competition. We're all lucky and blessed to be able to make music for your whole life.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I never had to grow up. It wasn't easy. It was hard, hard work.
Yeah.
But every second of it was a joy.
I want to talk about your guitar playing on this record. Can we play something there, Sam? That's the band Envy of None with the track Under the Stars off their new album. Talk to me about, I don't know, talk to me about playing guitar on this record. It's different than what I think a lot of us are used to from you.
So the first record, I really wanted to create guitar moments that were untraditional. I wanted to get away from hearing a guitar as a guitar and create and manipulate the guitar as a sort of a neutral instrument that creates all these different textures and colors. Probably 70% of that record, the guitar stuff is really that. You're not sure if it's a keyboard or a vocal thing.
Big chords, major 7 chords that linger for a really long time.
Well, there's all of that, but there's also the whole other end that you're just not sure if it's a wind instrument or what.
Yeah, a lot of manipulation of gear, using gear. Yeah.
That's a lot of fun for me. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old, so for me, and I never felt restricted in Rush, but this was a wide open palette. I could create whatever I wanted. So it was challenging, and it was really a lot of fun to do that. And most times it started with a little puff or two, and I would get lost in the world of sound and technical junk. But with this second album, we've gone a little different. I think it's because we feel now we're sort of more of a unit, like a band, rather than 4 individuals working to make records.
Yeah.
So the guitar has a little more of a traditional presence overall, but still I get to do that fun stuff. But I'm playing solos, for example, and I tend to stay away from that because I don't want solos to seem like they're just a flash showmanship thing. How many notes you can play, how fast you can play, shredding, all of that stuff. Who can you impress? I believe that a solo really requires some thought in its construction. And, I look at as soloing as an ascending ramp that it reaches a pinnacle when the solo's over. It has to have a crescendo, and it has to be in service of the song. It can't just be, look at me, I'm so great. It has to be... It has to reflect what's happened before in the lyrics, in the chorus, in the verses. The whole message of the song. And if I can use the story as an example, the solo in that is very, very emotive. And I'm launched by Maiah at the very beginning of that. The solo happens, and it's after the solo when her voice returns that it all works. It all presents to that point where she now delivers the message that what the song is all about. So it's thoughtfulness. It's thoughtful construction. It's not just a piece that's tagged on. It's all in service of the song, and that's what I truly believe. We all believe that.
Were you reluctant to play solos with this band because you had played solos in Rush?
I was reluctant, even in Rush towards the end. I was not playing nearly as many solos as, that was part of our, the way we did things. There was always a spot for a solo. Whether we used it as a solo or not, it was there. And I would do a solo. And then in the later years, I just wanted to get away from that because I didn't want to bring so much attention to that. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking crazy, but it just seemed that way at the time. So going into this, the music was so different, and I just wanted to be in the background, and I wanted to be, my job was to be a part of this thing, not that guy from Rush. So
what I love hearing about this is that take this what you will, is that I think we think sometimes that we freeze musicians at a time. And what I really love hearing, I don't even have a question, what I really love hearing is that you're still progressing on this instrument. You're still thinking about this instrument. You're still thinking about changing what you do on this instrument. You're going from like technical ability to, I want to have an emotional arc in this song. Like, I love that you didn't get frozen somewhere. You know what I mean? You're obviously still working on it.
Thank God. I'm really lucky that way. As I said, I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old, and I fell in love with music. A few years before that, I started really listening to music when I was about 10. And I currently probably play 3 or 4 hours a day.
No.
I always set aside an hour before I go to bed to play. I have a couple of acoustics in my bedroom, and the first thing I do when I walk in the room is I pick up the guitar and I play it.
What do you play? Do you play scales or?
No, I just play guitar. I don't play songs. I don't play scales. I play guitar. Anything that just flows. So, I'm lucky because I've been doing it for so long. I can do that. I can just sit down and start playing stuff. I'm not good at playing songs like other people's songs.
Yeah.
Like I can learn it, and I'm skilled that way.
Are you doing other tunings? Do you do any now?
Oh my God, I'm crazy for other tunings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll sit down and do Dagad for a while or something.
Well, I'll
like
do that for a while, but then I'll get bored of it, and I'll come up with some other crazy tuning that I don't even know what it is. It's a great thing to do because it makes the instrument brand new every time. You don't know where all those chords don't mean a thing in that other tuning. So you have to create others, and it's just it just widens your whole appreciation of the instrument. I love playing guitar.
12 years old. The story I heard is that it was a brother-in-law who had a guitar, a nylon string guitar, maybe?
Yeah, my brother-in-law Nicky, he had a classical guitar,
right?
That he lent to me. He took it back, but he lent it to me for a while, and then I begged my parents for a guitar, and they bought me a $5 Kent acoustic guitar. It was a cheap Japanese acoustic guitar, and I had that for a year. And then begged them for an electric guitar. So they pulled all the strings out and bought a $59 Kenora Japanese knockoff
big
guitar.
Bucks.
And I just I still have it. I had it refinished recently to bring it back to new.
Oh, you still have it?
Oh yeah.
How's it playing? How's it sound?
It sounds and plays like a $58 guitar.
Was there I don't know if I want to ask because obviously when you pick up a guitar, you're just banging on it and trying to figure out something. What was the first thing you tried to play? Like, what was the first thing you wanted to play?
I wanted to play the rhythm pattern for Satisfaction.
Dum, dum, da, da.
Yeah, so there was that, but there's the part in the background where Brian Jones is playing the E chord to the D to the A to the E chord to the D to the A to the E chord.
In the verse?
Yeah.
Or in that part?
Yes,
Yeah.
In the verses.
I can't get... And you worked on it?
Oh, yeah. That was... Learning those 3 chords was tough. It was really hard. And the thing with guitar, from my experience, is when you learn to play guitar or you attempt to learn to play guitar, you're on a plateau for, it seems like a million years. And then suddenly one day, all of a sudden you can play this thing.
I know, it clicks.
It's like a little tiny improvement.
All of a sudden you can play guitar. You couldn't play guitar, and now you can play guitar.
And you stay there forever. And so it's like these long steps.
One of the things I took away from the book about you, who I don't know very well, is that there was a rush before Geddy and, of course, before Neil. But even, you had started this band. When you were really young, what made you want to be in a band?
Well, I loved music, and I loved the idea of being a guitarist, and that seemed so cool to me as a 13, 14-year-old kid, like most kids that age that wanted to be in a band. I played in a band, like a basement band with John Rutsey and a couple of other guys called The Projection, and our gigs were limited to whoever happened to have a basement party, and we knew, I don't know, half a dozen songs, Yardbirds, covers, House of the Rising Sun, and stuff like that. And every time we played those songs, and we played them over and over again, it was so exciting to be even just standing in a room with a guitar and a crappy little amp and playing. As things develop and you improve, you want to do it on a bigger scale. And John and I had done so many things together, and I said, let's start this band. And I had been jamming with a bass player, Jeff Jones, who went on to play with Tom Cochrane in his band. And Jeff was a vocalist, and we'd just been jamming, casually. And I asked if he'd want to play in this band. And we got a gig at this drop-in center at St. Theodore's Anglican Church.
In Toronto?
In Willowdale.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was just like 2 blocks from where we lived.
Yeah.
And it was a drop-in center called The Coffin. Every Friday night, and so we did this gig, and
The Coffin.
That's
great, by the way.
And I think we probably knew a dozen songs, and we just played them over and over a couple of times, and then and they wanted us to come back, and so the following week, Jeff couldn't make it. He was actually in another band, so I called Ged because we'd also, we were at school and we were jamming and all that stuff, and I used to ask him if I could borrow his amp mostly. But then I asked if I could borrow him for this gig, and he came, and we played all those same songs, Hendrix and Cream and all of that stuff. And we got paid $10, and we went to Panzer's after the gig and ordered fries and Cokes and plotted our takeover.
You thought you had it made at that point, really, right?
No, I remember we were saying, where do you think we are in the whole echelon of bands in the world? Are we like 10,987th? Best band in the world.
That's so funny. Because the reason I ask about, why did you want to be in a band is because I saw this clip, I'm sure you've seen it, of you're a kid, man. You're sitting at the table with a bunch of other young people, and your parents are there, and you're making the argument. They're saying to you, pretty emphatically, this is not an easy life, and this is not a life of security. And you are in full belief of this thing. You're saying I'm going to go to I don't need to go to university. I can do this. You were serious about it.
I was serious. The film let me just backtrack a little bit. I auditioned to be in a film that Alan King was making of a married couple fame and Warrendale. This film was called Come On Children, and the premise was 10 kids from all different parts of the city moving in together in a farmhouse, and just behind the scenes, his style of cinema verite, just what happens in the relationships, the tension, all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it was really boring. Nothing really happened that was juicy enough.
That's funny.
So we were there for 3 months filming this thing.
3 months?
Yeah. And about halfway through, I guess, our parents were invited to tour the farmhouse. It was in Newcastle, Ontario. and just see what we were doing. Because there were lights everywhere, and like the studio and cameras, and so we were having a conversation after lunch. And my parents, they were like all parents, were concerned. They came from the war.
Yeah.
They came from that horror and having nothing, and they wanted me to be a professional, a dentist or an engineer or something. And I was just set on music. So at this meal, we were just two sides of that argument. And I remember I was sitting in a chair rocking back and forth, and I was adamant that I didn't need all these,
I have it. Like I'm nervous playing parent stuff for people. You never know how people feel about it. Do you want to hear it?
Okay.
Can we hear it?
Like, I don't want to make a bunch of money. Like, if I make a lot of money, that's great. But I'm not gonna go to university and get a big degree. Hang on, no, I don't. I don't want to drive around in a big car and get people to go, hey, there goes Alex. He's loaded with money, and wow, he's really set himself up great. That's what I need. But who wants to know how much atmospheric pressure is on 5 milligrams of mercury and stuff like that? That's not gonna help me. I don't see why I have to go through all the bullshit of high school to learn music.
What goes through your mind hearing that?
It sounds like my kids. When I was 17, I believed all of that stuff. I was, schooling has a place. It's not that you're lacking knowledge. You learn it another way, things that you're interested in. But learning about all those things that you had to learn in school, I was so passionate about music. That's not, what I needed.
You believed in it, man. You can hear that.
I truly did believe in it. I don't know about the car so much anymore.
I was going to say, ironically, people do look at you when you drive by and go, wow, that's Alex. He did. That part actually did end up happening. I wasn't around. I just want to spend a little bit more time here. Like, I wasn't around. What was Toronto's scene like then when Rush started? When the band got together and started gigging, you guys started packing clubs in Toronto pretty good. What was the scene like then for you guys?
It was 1968 when we got together with the band in September of that year. Toronto was sort of divided between the hippie scene in Yorkville and the R&B scene downtown.
On Yonge Street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably leaned more towards the hippie scene, but I appreciated Mandela and the Yeomen and all of the bands. The Ugly Ducklings were my favorite band at that time. So the influences were numerous coming from all that stuff, and quite honestly, all that R&B stuff that I listened to then, that R&B, Toronto soul, I guess. It informs a song like Not Dead Yet. I mean, it's just a funky song with that kind of Toronto funk to it.
Not Dead Yet's my favorite track on the record, by the way. We're going to play that at the end of the interview.
And it all comes from that.
Yeah.
So something sunk in. So it was really quite an exciting scene. There were a lot of great Toronto bands. You could go to see the Kensington Market for 75 cents.
Oh, the band, right? The Kensington Market.
Yeah. It was really, really exciting. And being 14, 15, 16 years old, we all went, to all those things and tried to be a part of all of that.
So how did you guys fit in? I guess there emerged a rock scene eventually. There emerged a third scene.
Yeah, so in 1971, the Ontario government lowered the drinking age from 21 to 18.
Yeah.
That was the year that we just turned 18. And we went from playing high school dances once, maybe twice a month if we were lucky, to playing 6 nights a week and some matinees on Saturdays for week after week after week. I mean, all those clubs popped up, the Abbey Road, Piccadilly Tube, the Gasworks, Larry's Hideaway. So you went from playing a week at one place to a week at another to another. You constantly played. And that's really so important in the early stages. That's what really, that's you're learning your stuff.
Guess that Little Steven says that. Like the reason the E Street Band worked out is because they played in Asbury Park every night somewhere. Covers, like learning what works. They just learn how to put the hours in.
It all adds up in your 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
And who was driving the bus? Who was putting up the posters? Like who was the grind? Who was the one who was in it?
So Ray Daniels was our manager.
I know, but of the three of you, like were all three of you meaning it? Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Did all three of you want it?
Oh, for sure. And we spent a lot of time writing music. Every chance we
That's
had,
beautiful, man.
we did all that stuff. And we were very dedicated to what we were doing.
Did you have any awareness that this thing that we have, the three of us, could be a thing?
I really had a belief in myself. Like, if this doesn't work out, this music thing, well, then I'll do something else. I'll work with my dad as a plumber's assistant or whatever. But I really believed that this was going to work out. I never worried about it in the early days. And when we started touring in America, when we got our record deal, I mean, that was a major turning point. It was so exciting, to have a 5-record deal and the prospect of touring in America, not just playing in Collingwood at the pub.
High schools.
Yeah, in high schools. All of that was really, really exciting. I think it was probably around the time of 2112 that we all felt that we'd arrived, that we really, truly believed that we'd now developed our own sound and our own character and personality to a band.
I have a question about we talked a little bit about your guitar playing with Envy of None a little while ago. I want to talk about the development of your guitar playing in Rush and something I'm kind of curious about. Can we just take a listen? I mean, I know you said you don't really like shredding anymore, but that's pretty good, man.
Well, that was then.
That's pretty good. I read you talk about that because Geddy and Neil were such virtuosi. There you go.
Very good.
It's Canadian public radio, buddy. I'm at my mom's home. She's an English teacher. She's delighted with me
now
right
she's
now.
very proud of you.
Very proud of me. That what I heard you say, I wrote it down. That they take up a lot of space in the music because they're so good. And not to say you're not good, but it led you to having to develop your own space in the music. I think years ago when I would probably have just said, cool, yeah, man, I get it. I don't really understand what that means. Can you explain that to me?
Maybe good is not the right word. Active is a more correct, accurate word.
A lot of notes.
Yeah, they're both. Neil was a very active drummer. I mean, you listen to his stuff. There's a complexity to everything that he does. Even the simple drum things are complex, and Ged and Neil worked as a rhythm section, like unlike any other rhythm section. So they were very active, and they'd work on things eye to eye. And so I was sort of more in the background, and I thought, well, how am I going to?
What do you mean more in the background?
Well, just standing beside them.
But they'd kind of lock in.
Yeah, they'd lock in.
Yeah.
That's the point. They'd lock in, and I could play stuff that they were doing, the comparable guitar parts. But I started thinking, well, if they're going to be this active in general, I need to hold the fort a little bit, which is sort of the opposite of what the rhythm section should be doing or does. So I thought, well, what I need to do is develop a sound that's broad and very, very full. So, I started playing chords that had open strings, suspended chords, just to create more sound and more of a bottom, a bass.
Doesn't that go against the ego aspects of someone who wants to be a lead guitar player? Do you know what I mean?
Maybe other guitar players, yeah, probably 99% right on that.
Yeah.
But I never felt that way. I mean, I felt I'm playing in a band with two guys that I absolutely love. They're amazing musicians. What can I add that's going to make it all sound really great? I always had, my time. I do with the solo, like the one you just heard. There was always that. There was never a competition, or I never felt like, oh, geez, I wish I could, do more stuff like that. And I just, again, it's in the service of the song, and that's the way we've always
Yeah, man.
done it.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at is that that's a really lovely way of making music, and it's often the way that great music gets made. There's a great guitarist back home in Newfoundland. He was in this great band called the Wonderful Grand Band. His name was Glenn Simmons, and he used to say to me, sometimes in rock and roll, it's about passing the puck. You can't always shoot.
Yeah.
And someone got to pass the puck. Not to say you didn't take a lot of shots and score a lot of goals, Alex.
Yeah.
But I think it takes like a maturity and a sophistication to pass the puck. You know what I mean?
I think as a person, I'm very empathetic. I like to think that I'm very generous of spirit.
Yeah.
And I try to be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I derive a lot of satisfaction from being in the background and helping other people shine. It's makes me feel good. Like, I'm terrible with competitive sports because I feel bad if someone's losing. So I'll lose. And then I'll sort of kick myself and say, what's the matter with you?
Like,
But
fine.
ultimately, it makes me feel better.
Where does that come from, man?
I was raised well.
Are your folks like that?
Yeah, my parents were, my mother very much so. We were raised to be very polite. I mean, we were raised to be good Canadian kids. My mother had a beautiful voice and musical, and just she cared. She was very, very generous. She was a nurse her whole life, and worked in the service of other people, and never complained about it. And I think it's from her that I really inherited this.
Well, is your mom still with us?
Yes, she is. She's 91, and she's crystal clear. Her memory's better
You're
than
kidding
mine.
me, Alex.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
do you mind if I ask her name?
Melly.
Melly.
Yeah.
And
Melania.
And she's still. Geez,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
man.
we play cards once a week. I go up with my sisters, and we have lunch. We take turns bringing lunch, and we play cards. We try to speak a little bit of Serbian, much to her hilarity.
I'm building back from the rush to Envy and None. I think right now it's really common for bands to have intense fandoms. There are subcultures around bands now. Every band has a subreddit online where you can read about Tame Impala, or you can read about the 1975, or you can read fan theories about U2. Back when Rush were playing, that was pretty limited. The Grateful Dead, I guess, had people who followed them around. Yes, might have had a couple of people who followed them around, but it wasn't common to have an intense fandom. And there's one thing that I was thinking about is that there were very few casual Rush listeners. There were some people who liked the hits, but there were, of that time and of your era, there were more devoted fans than most bands of that time. Looking back, can you wager a guess as to why that was?
I think most people, when they discover a band, especially one that's not particularly popular or different, it's like, that's my band. I discovered that band. That's my band. And you develop this strong bond with that band. I remember Led Zeppelin. When I first discovered Led Zeppelin, I got my album as an import at Sam's.
Cool.
And I felt like, this is my band, because no one knew about them. Or
Oh, it was Zeppelin 1, was it? It was like early.
Yeah, the first Zeppelin album.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think there's an element of that. I think the complexity and the fact that we're not, a love you baby kind of band, brought a different audience.
Yeah.
One that was, I don't want to say intellectual, but just wanted more meat out of what they were listening to and the music experience. So we developed that fan base fairly early, and then once we started getting more success with other albums, 2112 and Moving Pictures, as they started happening. They became even stickier. Like, we developed such a close relationship with our audience, and it was really important to us to maintain that and service it. And we always said we write for ourselves first, and I think you have to have that attitude if you want to be respected by your fans. But our fans were very vocal. They were very critical. They were very, commentary was all over the board. People would let us know what they liked and what they didn't like. And it was great to have that kind of conversation with your fans. Just, so much closer.
When Neil wants to get off the road and the band stops touring, I would think it would be addictive. that lifestyle of being on the road a lot, of getting applause most nights, of having catering, of having, you were on a hamster wheel for a really, really long time. What's the hardest part about it getting off of it when it stopped?
We toured for 40 years. I mean, there was nothing lacking. We got to do everything. And it's thrilling to hear that crowd. But to be honest with you, when you're walking up on that stage, you're not thinking about them. You don't even notice them. You're thinking about, I hope I don't play that wrong note that I played the other night. And when we get to that transition, what should I be like? You're thinking about work. And our nature is not, certainly with Neil, was not about that, the celebrity of what we were doing. That's great to have it and all of that stuff, but we were thinking about work and doing the best job we could. We felt we had a very serious responsibility. People were paying a lot of money to come see us play. We got to put on a good show. You're not going to get up there and get drunk and jump around like you're some kind of rock and roll god. Yeah. You're going to play the gig. Like we didn't, nothing, no drugs, well, maybe a little bit in the early days, a little pot here and there. Before a show, we were playing for 20 minutes. But certainly when we were headlining, no drinks, not even a sip of beer, like nothing, just to keep your faculties in place. Yeah. So we always took it very, very seriously. And
so when that stopped?
So when it stopped, Neil was adamant that he was done.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. There was a time where he was thinking that maybe we could stretch it a bit, but then he had a problem with his feet, and he was done. Ged and I were disappointed. We felt like we had a lot of gas in the tank still. That particular tour was great because there was a retrospective from the last tour right down to the beginning, where our amps were on two little stools on stage in a gymnasium. We did the whole trip in time. And we could have done that tour for at least another 20 or 30 shows. We wanted to go to Europe desperately. We had a lot of fans there, and we never got there in the UK especially. So I think Ged and I were we were very disappointed. I'd say, to be honest with you, maybe a little bitter that it ended that way. But what could we do? Neil did it for 40 years. He absolutely had the toughest job in the band, and he felt like if he couldn't play 100%, then he was done.
But was it tough being home after that? Like that's what I'm getting at. Like you done one thing for, like, was it tough just being home and not being on the road?
At that point in my life, no, it wasn't tough being home. I had two grandkids. Yeah. So it meant that I could spend more time with them, and they were growing up. It was a replacement a little bit for my kids because we were away for so much. So you adapt. You miss it. You wish you could still do it, but the more you become a homebody, the less you think about the glory of all of that stuff. And that there are other things in life, and there are other great things that you want to do and other paths you want to follow. So the transition was not that difficult, aside from the little bit of resentment we had. Then, of course, Neil discovered that he was ill, and nothing mattered after that. Yeah,
it's a great eraser of any of those feelings, isn't it?
Yeah. When Neil lost his daughter in '97, I didn't play guitar for a year. I was just so drained of any desire to, I guess to enjoy the beauty and love of music. And the same thing happened when he passed away. It was, I didn't really want to play, and it wasn't the same. And I have this thing, I grieve for a year and I try to, go beyond that and reset myself. And that's what I did with Envy of None after he passed.
That piece for him on the first record is beautiful.
The Western Sunset.
Western Sunset is a beautiful tune.
Yeah.
I love that tune.
Yeah.
And I was wondering with Envy of None, I was just wondering whether it was, because I didn't want to act as if you didn't do anything in between. Like you had other bands and you made other music and you did other stuff. But this feels different, man. I don't know. There's something about the way you talk about it and the way we're talking about it and the way you seem to care about it. I guess I wondered whether you would ever get to a place where you'd be able to talk about another band, or talk about a band this way.
That's great that you bring that up, because that's not the way I felt with the first album. I made sure on record that this was a recording deal with 4 musicians to make a record. And I would go out and say, we're not a band. We're 4 independent musicians that have a commonality.
Yeah, I read that in the press in the first record, yeah.
And I think part of that was just not wanting to feel that I'm in another band. Rush was the only band I was in. With this second album, with Stygian Waves, when I got the mastered version back, after it mastered, just sent for approvals, in sequence, and I hadn't listened to the music in 4 or 5 days, so I had a bit of a clear head. And I put it on, and I was listening to it, and I was thinking, my God, this is a band. This is a band. We've created a band, and I'm in it. So this is a good thing.
I do hear you and Getty are jamming once a week.
Getty's my best friend.
Yeah.
We do so much stuff together. We play tennis together. Often we drink a little too much wine together. Mm-hmm. He definitely drinks too much coffee sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I'll go over to his place and, we'll just hang around. Invariably, we'll go downstairs into his studio and we'll play. And, for fun, we play some Rush songs.
Just 2 instruments or?
Yeah, just the 2 of us,
right.
Just jamming, really.
Right.
In fact, just playing. And it's so much fun for the 2 of us to play. We've been writing music together for 50 years. So, and honestly, he's my best friend. Yeah. Why wouldn't I want to hang around with him?
Yeah.
So that's our relationship. And the rumors fly and all of that stuff. And
the rumors of right.
Of anything, a new album and, whatever. But, we just really, really enjoy each other's company. I talk to him almost every day and have forever.
Do you watch baseball with him?
I'm not really a baseball fan.
Right.
Every once in a while, he hasn't actually invited me in a while to sit in those amazing seats.
That's what I was kind of getting at, because I see him there all the time.
You don't want to pick your nose sitting in those seats for sure. You're on camera the whole time.
I never see Alex there. I never get invited in.
Well, he knows I'm not really that big of a ball fan, and he'd rather take friends that are. But I know that we'll get around to it eventually.
So we're going to play Not Dead Yet from Stygian Waves, from Envy of None. You guys going to go on the road?
So we'd love to. It's the logistics are overwhelming at times to do this, and it's a different world. And we're a new band. I mean, we have some notoriety, but we're just a new band, so we can't expect much. To go into a small venue like Massey Hall, for example, and to play for 2 hours, those 2 albums with a nice light show would be amazing. It would be a beautiful night of music. So we got an agent to look into it and see what the numbers look like. And he said, well, you can do it, and you'll just lose thousands and thousands of dollars doing it. So we kind of thought, okay, let's just put it on hold. If the album does well and there's an audience, and we could maybe do 2 or 3 nights in a venue like Massey Hall and maybe do 2 or 3 cities, then it's something that we would consider. We'd all love to do it, but we want to be realistic about it. I'm not getting in a van.
I was going to say your van.
Yeah. No, van days.
What did you making tuna casserole in a van?
Making tuna casseroles and doing my shifts. Yeah. Each of us took shifts, 350-mile shifts. So that was fine then, but not now.
Man, when I found out we were talking to you, I was, of course, delighted about it. But I figured it was a retrospective, or maybe there was, something going on, an anniversary of a Rush record. And I was like, well, that doesn't really sound like Alex. To find out that you were making new music that you were so passionate about and that you loved and stretched your musicianship in a new way it's a beautiful thing, man.
It is.
It doesn't happen to everybody.
No, it doesn't.
So thanks for coming in and talking about it.
My pleasure, Tom. Great to be here.
Come in anytime you want.
I will. Thank you.